The cabin of United Skies Flight 447 went silent as a voice exploded from the front. "Security! Remove this girl from first class now!" All eyes turned to a young black woman calmly turning a page in her medical textbook. Linda Hayes, the head flight attendant, stormed down the aisle, her voice sharp and full of contempt. "This seat isn't for charity cases. Show your real ticket." Phones began recording. The girl's expression didn't change. No shouting, no panic, just one quiet thought in her eyes. They have no idea who they're dealing with. The sharp crack of Linda Hayes' voice sliced through the luxurious hush of United Skies Flight 447's first-class cabin. "Security! Remove this girl from first class, now!" Heads turned as if drawn by an invisible magnet. The opulent leather seats, the gentle hum of pre-flight music, the polite chatter between passengers, all of it collapsed into an unnatural silence. In seat 2A, a young black woman in a simple navy blazer kept her gaze fixed on the open page of her medical textbook, her pen poised mid-sentence as though she hadn't heard the explosion. But she had. Emma Carter had heard everything. The air felt tight, charged with a strange, brittle electricity that precedes a thunderstorm. Across the aisle, a man in a suit lowered his newspaper. In row 3, a couple stopped discussing their vacation. An elderly woman in 1C glanced nervously toward the aisle, her champagne glass trembling slightly in her hand. Linda Hayes was already striding down the aisle, her heels striking the carpet in clipped, furious beats. 15 years as head flight attendant had sharpened her voice into a weapon, one she now aimed directly at Emma. "This seat," Linda barked, her tone dripping with disdain, "is not for charity cases. Show your real ticket, now." Emma's fingers, still resting on her pen, didn't twitch. She didn't look up. Phones began to appear. Maria Lopez, in seat 3B, was the first to angle her camera toward the brewing confrontation. The app opened almost instinctively. She'd live-streamed travel mishaps before, but never had she seen something like this. Her fingers flew, sending a live notification to her followers. "You'll need to see this," she murmured softly to her phone. The viewer count jumped instantly into triple digits. Linda's voice rose again, hard and uncompromising. "Stand up," she commanded. "Don't make this harder on yourself. You're not supposed to be here." Emma lifted her eyes at last, not to Linda, but to the window. Outside, baggage handlers were finishing up on the tarmac. A streak of sunlight fell across her lap, catching on the edge of her bracelet. She calmly turned a page in her textbook, revealing a diagram of a human heart cross-sectioned in intricate detail. No words. Linda's eyes narrowed. "You think staying quiet makes you look innocent? It just makes you look guilty." Passengers were shifting in their seats now. Several first-class travelers glanced at one another with discomfort, as if uncertain whether to intervene or stay silent. The line between embarrassment and outrage was blurring in the pressurized air. Maria's viewer count crossed 500. Comments began scrolling so fast she could barely keep up. "Who is she? That's discrimination. Name the flight attendant. Don't back down, girl." "Miss," Linda snapped, leaning forward into Emma's space. "Do I need to call ground security? Because I will." Emma finally closed her book. Her hands were steady, her face serene. Her eyes, calm, clear, unflinching, rose to meet Linda's. "I'm in my assigned seat," she said, her voice low, deliberate. The simplicity of the statement was almost jarring against Linda's fury. Maria's camera caught the exchange perfectly. The live chat erupted. Linda's jaw tightened. "Assigned seat? Don't play games. First class seat 2A is not assigned to people like you." The words hung in the air, heavier than the recycled oxygen around them. A ripple passed through the cabin. Someone in row 4 muttered something under their breath. The couple in 3A turned their bodies slightly, pretending to ignore the scene, but straining to hear every word. Emma didn't flinch. Maria whispered to her viewers, "She's not raising her voice. She's not even defending herself. Why's she so calm?" The viewer count ticked past 800. Linda straightened, crossing her arms. "Boarding pass, now." Emma reached slowly into her leather satchel. Every motion was measured, unhurried. She retrieved a slim navy portfolio, opened it, and slid out a crisp boarding pass. The gold lettering gleamed. First class, seat 2A, Carter, E. She handed it over without a word. Linda snatched it, glanced at it, then gave a sharp, dismissive laugh. "Probably an upgrade mistake," she said, loud enough for the whole cabin. "These happen all the time when people use points they didn't earn. System glitches." Maria's camera panned to Linda's face. The comments exploded again. "This is bad PR for the airline. I hope she's recording this. That attendant is done." Linda thrust the pass back toward Emma. "You'll need to move. Now." Emma tucked the pass neatly back into her portfolio, still silent. The calm was unnerving. In seat 3C, a middle-aged man whispered to his wife, "She's not acting like someone caught in a lie. She's acting like she knows something we don't." Maria caught it on stream. Her audience loved it. Emma turned her gaze toward the aisle again. For a moment, her eyes landed on a man sitting in 1B, a man in a charcoal suit who had been watching the scene with an almost imperceptible frown. His hand twitched toward his phone. Maria's chat noticed. "Who's that in 1B?" He recognizes her. "Plot twist incoming?" Linda, oblivious to the subtle shift in the room, reached for her intercom. "This is Hayes in first class," she barked. "I need Ground Supervisor Reynolds up here immediately. Passenger issue. Possible fraudulent ticket." Emma's gaze didn't leave the window. Maria's camera stayed locked on her face. Her viewers passed 1,200. "Ladies and gentlemen," Linda announced loudly to the cabin, "there may be a brief delay. We appreciate your cooperation while we handle this situation." The word "situation" landed like a stone. Emma closed her portfolio, resting it on her lap. The hum of the engines was the only sound for a moment. Then Maria whispered into her phone, "This is about to get interesting." Her viewer count ticked higher. Linda Hayes's fingers pinched the boarding pass like it was contaminated. She waved it once in the air, then dropped it onto Emma's lap with a smirk that barely disguised her contempt. "First class, seat 2A, Linda said in a voice pitched just high enough for the entire cabin to hear. "Sure, and I'm the Queen of England. These upgrade errors happen all the time. People book with points they didn't earn, or tickets they borrow." Her tone lingered on the last word like a judge issuing a sentence. Emma glanced down at the pass, brushed an invisible speck of lint from its edge, and slid it back into her leather portfolio without a word. Maria Lopez's live stream chat was already boiling. She showed the ticket. "This is harassment now. Linda's digging her own grave." Linda crossed her arms, looking down at Emma with the cool superiority of someone confident the rules and the room were on her side. "Identification," Linda said abruptly, holding out her hand. Emma's hand moved with the same measured calm as before. She reached back into her portfolio, this time retrieving a slim, laminated badge attached to a Navy lanyard. She placed it in Linda's palm. The badge bore her photograph, her name, Dr. Emma Carter, and the words, "Mayo Clinic, Cardiology Residency Program." For a heartbeat, Linda's brow furrowed, but she quickly replaced it with a dismissive laugh. "A Mayo Clinic ID? How creative," Linda said, shaking her head. "Do you know how easy these are to fake? Print shops can make one in under an hour. I've seen better work in cosplay conventions." The words drew a sharp intake of breath from somewhere in the cabin. Emma didn't respond. Her silence was like a blade cutting through Linda's escalating anger, which only seemed to grow sharper with every measured pause. Maria zoomed her camera on Linda's hand holding the ID. The comments section lit up again. "That badge looks real. Why would a fake badge have that much detail?" "I think Linda's in trouble." In the front row, the man in 1B adjusted in his seat, glancing briefly over his shoulder toward Emma. There was something in his eyes, a flicker of recognition, quickly masked by a carefully neutral expression. His thumb brushed the edge of his phone, hovering as though debating whether to make a call. Maria's chat caught it instantly. "Did you see 1B?" He knows her. What's happening? Linda was still talking, her voice carrying across the cabin like the clang of a courtroom gavel. Young lady, first-class passengers are verified for a reason. We don't just let anyone walk in with whatever shiny badge they've printed in their garage. Emma's expression didn't shift. She leaned back slightly in her seat, folding her hands over her portfolio. Her breathing was steady, each inhale and exhale a testament to her composure. The cabin was a taut wire of tension, humming with the unspoken question, "Who is this girl?" Linda stepped back, holding the badge between two fingers, and turned to the small crowd of watching passengers. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, her voice full of performative authority, "you'll understand why I need to verify this information. We've had issues before. It's for everyone's safety." The couple in 3A exchanged a glance. The woman whispered, "This feels wrong." Her partner replied quietly, "She's way too calm to be lying." Maria's chat flooded with messages. Why isn't she yelling back? Because she doesn't need to. This is getting interesting. Linda, meanwhile, was already keying her radio. "This is Hayes in first class," she said crisply. "I'm requesting immediate ground verification for a suspicious passenger ID." She looked back at Emma. "Until this is cleared up, you will remain seated, and we will proceed accordingly." Emma inclined her head slightly, the barest acknowledgement. In 1B, the man who'd recognized her finally lifted his phone. His fingers flew over the screen in quick, precise taps. He turned slightly away from the aisle, murmuring into the receiver. His voice was low, inaudible over the quiet hum of the cabin, but Maria's camera caught the movement. 1B is making a call. He definitely knows her. Twist coming. Linda returned the ID to Emma, her movements sharp and clipped. "You can hold on to your little badge," Linda said. "It won't change the fact that your seat assignment will probably be corrected any moment now." Emma slipped the ID back into her portfolio without reaction. The quiet tension was beginning to press on everyone. Even the normally unshakable calm of first class had fractured. People shifted in their seats, uncomfortable at the open display of authority pressing down on a single passenger. Maria panned her camera toward Emma again, zooming in on her calm face. "She's not cracking," Maria whispered into her live stream. "It's like she's just waiting." The viewer count passed 1,500. Linda, apparently dissatisfied with the lack of immediate results, turned toward the galley, muttering something into her radio again. The man in 1B ended his call. His expression was carefully neutral once more, but he glanced back at Emma just long enough for Maria's camera to catch it. The chat exploded again. "He knows. I swear he knows. Who is she? We need answers." Emma shifted in her seat, her gaze briefly sweeping the cabin before settling back on her closed portfolio. She had said barely a dozen words since the confrontation began, yet the balance of control in the room seemed subtly, imperceptibly shifting. Maria sensed it. Her audience sensed it. But Linda, still confident, still brimming with unshakable certainty, did not. And that was exactly how Emma intended to keep it. The sliding door at the front of the cabin opened with a decisive hiss, cutting through the simmering tension like a blade. A tall man in a crisp navy blazer stepped inside, the silver wings on his lapel glinting under the cabin lights. "Ground Supervisor Reynolds," Linda announced with an air of triumph, as if reinforcements had arrived to restore order. Tom Reynolds moved down the aisle with the unhurried authority of someone who was used to being the final word in uncomfortable situations. His expression was neutral, but there was a slight crease between his brows as he took in the scene. Linda standing stiffly, arms crossed. Emma Carter sitting in 2A, calm but resolute. Passengers leaning ever so slightly into the tension, eyes tracking every move. Maria Lopez's camera zoomed in from row 3. The viewer count spiked to 1,900 and climbing. "Tom, we have a situation," Linda began before he could speak. "Passenger in first class with questionable documentation. I suspect a fraudulent ticket. I've already contacted verification." Tom gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. His gaze shifted to Emma. "Miss, I'm going to need you to gather your belongings," he said evenly. Until we verify your information, you'll have to move to a different seat. The cabin shifted like a wave breaking on a shore. There it was. The presumed authority. The expected verdict. Emma didn't move. "My ticket is valid," she said simply, her voice calm. Tom extended a hand. "If everything checks out, we'll resolve this quickly, but for now, please cooperate." Maria's chat exploded. She already showed her ticket. They're ignoring the proof. This is harassment in real time. Linda's smirk widened ever so slightly as she stepped back, satisfied. Emma, still seated, reached into her leather portfolio and retrieved her boarding pass once more. She placed it in Tom's outstretched hand without a trace of irritation. Tom studied it briefly, his brow tightening a fraction. "Seat 2A, Carter E, first class. Purchased through corporate account?" The last two words lingered in the air like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. Maria's camera caught the subtle hesitation. Her chat immediately pounced. "Corporate account? That's unusual for a fraudulent ticket. Something's off here." Tom returned the pass to Emma. "I still need you to step aside until we verify." Maria's voice rose slightly as she narrated to her viewers. "They're pushing her to move even though the ticket matches. This is..." She stopped herself, shaking her head. "This is unreal." The viewer count crossed 2,000. Emma made no move to leave her seat. She glanced briefly at Tom, her eyes cool and unreadable. "Do you have my identification as well?" she asked. Linda stepped forward, producing the Mayo Clinic badge she'd returned earlier. Tom took it, holding it up to the light. The laminated surface reflected cleanly. The embedded hologram caught the glow from the overhead lights. For the first time, Tom's neutral expression shifted, just slightly. His gaze flicked back to Emma. Maria caught it instantly. He saw something. He knows it's real. Look at his face. Tom turned slightly, ostensibly to inspect the badge more closely. But in that moment, his other hand slid to his phone. With a quick, practiced movement, he snapped a discreet photo of the badge. His thumb moved fast, sending the image to an unknown contact. Maria's camera caught the subtle motion. He just took a picture of her ID. Who's he sending it to? This is getting deeper. Linda, oblivious to the quiet exchange, kept her tone firm. "Tom, she's being non-compliant. I recommend moving her now before boarding is delayed any further." Tom slid the badge back to Emma, his expression composed once more. "Miss Carter, please," he said, his voice even, but with an edge that suggested urgency. Emma placed the badge back into her portfolio, her movements as controlled as they had been from the start. From the aisle, a passenger in 4C muttered just loud enough for nearby rows to hear. "She's not resisting, she's just not budging." Maria's audience was eating it up. She's too calm. She knows something. Why isn't she fighting? There's more to this story. Tom stepped back slightly, speaking into his earpiece in low tones. His words were indistinct, but the look on his face was more cautious now. Linda, however, remained unrelenting. "Tom, we can't hold the flight for this. She needs to move." Maria's camera panned back to Emma, who was looking out the window once more, the light catching the metallic edge of her bracelet. In 1B, the man who had recognized her earlier adjusted his cufflinks and leaned back in his seat, an unreadable expression on his face. His phone was face down on his tray table, but the small notification light blinked faintly. Maria's viewers noticed again. 1B is still watching. "I think he's involved. This is about to turn." Tom glanced toward Linda, then toward the cockpit. There was a slight tightness in his jaw now. "Let's hold for a minute," he said finally. Linda frowned. "Tom, just for a minute," he repeated, his tone clipped. Linda crossed her arms, glaring at Emma as if her stillness was a personal affront. Maria's chat was alive with speculation. "Something's happening behind the scenes. Tom's waiting for a call back. Who did he send the ID to?" The hum of the cabin deepened into silence. Emma sat unmoving, her calm unbroken. Tom stepped toward the galley, phone in hand, murmuring in low tones. And in seat 3B, Maria whispered into her phone, "This isn't over. Not even close." The cabin lights had dimmed slightly as the aircraft's doors sealed. A quiet announcement from the cockpit reminded the crew, "Cabin, prepare for pushback in 8 minutes." Tom Reynolds was still lingering by the galley, speaking quietly into his phone. Linda Hayes stood by the aisle, one hand on her hip, the other tapping her fingers impatiently against the seatback in front of Emma Carter. Emma, still in 2A, reached calmly into her blazer pocket. Her phone slid into her hand, a sleek black device that looked almost understated. She unlocked it with a subtle tap of her thumb and scrolled through her contacts. Linda's sharp eyes caught the movement. "Oh, this is Rich," Linda said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Going to call your boyfriend to complain? Or maybe a friend who'll post about how the big bad airline is being mean to you?" Emma didn't react. Her thumb hovered over a contact marked simply, line B77. She tapped it once. A soft tone rang once, twice, then clicked into a low hum of connection. Emma said nothing. Maria Lopez's camera in 3B captured every second. Her viewers, now over 2,400, leaned in digitally. "What's B77? Why isn't she saying anything? This feels important." Linda gave an exaggerated sigh. "Oh, silent treatment. Very intimidating." Tom glanced back from the galley, his brow furrowing. "What line was that?" Emma ended the call without a word. The phone screen flashed briefly. "Protocol activated." Tom's eyes narrowed. He'd seen enough strange situations in his career to know when something wasn't ordinary. Before he could ask, a new sound cut through the ambient murmur of the cabin, the squawk of the captain's radio. "Flight attendants, we have a ground stop order. Hold position. Repeat, hold position. Awaiting further instructions from operations." Linda's head snapped toward the intercom. "Ground stop? That can't be right. We were cleared." The captain's voice came back, tension evident. "Directive came straight from corporate headquarters. Stand by." Maria's camera caught Linda's expression, the sudden crack in her confident mask. Did her call just stop the flight? What just happened? This is wild. Linda turned back to Emma, her voice sharpening to recover control. "You think making prank calls is going to help you? It won't." Emma met her gaze, her expression unreadable. "I'm just waiting like everyone else." Tom stepped closer, his tone lower now. "Miss Carter, who did you just call?" Emma didn't answer. She simply set her phone on the armrest, the dark screen reflecting Linda's face, tight with barely concealed irritation. The captain's voice came again, more urgent this time. "Operations confirms. All departures on hold pending review. First-class crew remain at stations." Maria's viewers surged past 2,800. This is connected. No way it's coincidence. She called B77, and 5 seconds later the plane stops. "What is going on?" Linda huffed, forcing a brittle laugh. "Ground stops happen. Has nothing to do with you." But her voice was less certain now. Emma leaned back in her seat, her medical textbook once again open on her lap. She turned a page, the movement as serene as it had been since the start of the ordeal. In 1B, the man in the charcoal suit shifted slightly, his phone lighting up with a notification. His eyes flicked briefly toward Emma before returning to the screen. Maria's chat erupted again. 1B just got a text. "He's connected to this, I swear. This is building to something big." Tom checked his own phone. A single new message had appeared from an internal operations group. "Supervisor Reynolds, maintain position. HQ will contact shortly. Do not escalate passenger removal." His eyes moved instinctively toward Emma. Linda noticed the glance. "Tom, what is it?" "Nothing," he said quickly, slipping the phone back into his pocket. The tension in the cabin was thickening, but the power dynamic had shifted subtly. The woman Linda had been so sure she could remove from first class was still in her seat. The aircraft was no longer moving, and the order had come from somewhere higher than either of them could touch. Maria's live stream was on fire. She hasn't raised her voice once, and the flight just stopped. "This is the calmest power move I've ever seen. Linda is losing it." Linda took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "This doesn't change anything," she said, as much to herself as to anyone else. "The investigation will clear things up." Emma closed her textbook gently, her gaze steady. "I'm sure it will." Somewhere in the back of the cabin, a passenger chuckled softly, the sound quickly smothered in the pressurized air. In the galley, Tom's phone buzzed again. This time he didn't answer, but his expression tightened. Maria's voice lowered to her viewers. "I think we just saw our first crack in the armor. This isn't over, not by a long shot." Her audience had no idea just how right she was. The cabin remained in a strange suspension. Ground stop orders didn't just happen, at least not without a reason that trickled down to crew and passengers. But this time, there was no explanation, only a heavy silence that filled the space between the calm of Emma Carter and the rising agitation of Linda Hayes. Linda, however, saw the pause as a temporary inconvenience. "Corporate delays flights all the time," she said, forcing a smirk. "Has nothing to do with you. You'll still be in the wrong seat when it's over." Emma's phone buzzed softly on the armrest. The caller ID flashed. Robert Carter. Maria Lopez's live stream viewers jumped. Her mic picked up the faint buzz, and she angled her camera just enough to show the name without revealing the number. "Robert Carter? Wait, the Robert Carter? That's the chairman of United Skies." Linda noticed too. Her eyebrows shot up for half a second before her voice turned sharp again. "Who's Robert? Another fake contact?" Emma picked up the call. "Uncle Rob," she began, but the line crackled with sudden static. A different voice cut in. "This is Jonathan Pierce, Operations Control. Dr. Carter, the chairman, is currently unavailable. I'll be handling this on his behalf." Maria's chat exploded. She called the chairman and got blocked? What just happened? Someone's intercepting the call. Emma's expression stayed calm, but a flicker in her eyes betrayed calculation. "Jonathan, this is a time-sensitive issue. I'd prefer to speak directly with Robert Carter." "I understand," Jonathan said smoothly. "But at the moment, that's not possible. We'll resolve the matter internally." The line went dead. Linda folded her arms, the satisfied smile of someone who thought they'd just witnessed the collapse of their opponent's trump card. "Oh, what a shame," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Looks like your important contact is suddenly busy." Tom Reynolds glanced at Emma, concern tightening his features. He knew enough about corporate layers to recognize when someone powerful was interfering. But before he could say anything, Linda stepped forward. "Miss Carter," Linda said loudly, making sure the whole cabin could hear. "It's over. Your little stunt didn't work. Now please, gather your things." Emma placed her phone back on the armrest, her fingers calm, unhurried. "I'll remain seated," she said evenly. Maria's live stream had just passed 3,200 viewers. The chat scrolled so fast it was almost unreadable. "She's still not moving? What's going on behind the scenes? I don't think it's over." In 1B, the man in the charcoal suit shifted again. This time, he discreetly raised his own phone and began typing. The screen briefly flashed a secure messaging app. A short message went out. "Proceed to secondary protocol. B77 compromised." Maria's camera didn't catch the screen, but her chat noticed his movements. "1B is calling someone again. He's involved." "I know it. There's another layer here." Linda, meanwhile, was enjoying her perceived upper hand. She turned to Tom. "We're wasting time. Have her moved. She's non-compliant." Tom hesitated. His phone had buzzed again moments earlier, but he hadn't checked the message. Something about Emma's demeanor made him reluctant to escalate without more information. "Let's wait," he said finally, his tone cautious. Linda shot him a look. "Wait? For what? For her to make another fake call?" Maria's live stream caught every word. Linda is getting cocky again. Tom looks nervous. He knows something. There's more going on in HQ. Meanwhile, far above their pay grade, another phone buzzed, this one in a private office in United Skies corporate headquarters. A senior board member, Patricia Stone, leaned over her desk, scanning the incoming live stream link someone had sent her anonymously. Her eyes narrowed as she watched the footage. Linda Hayes berating a young woman who remained eerily calm. She recognized the name on the badge, Emma Carter. And she recognized the surname Carter for what it meant. Family of the chairman. Patricia tapped her desk phone. Get me Robert Carter. Now. And if Jonathan Pierce is intercepting calls again, I want him in my office in 10 minutes. Back on the plane, the cabin was a powder keg. Linda was growing louder again. I have procedures to follow, Miss Carter, and those procedures say you don't belong here. Emma opened her medical textbook again, her voice level. Procedures also say passengers should be treated with dignity. The words carried a weight that made Tom glance sharply at her. Linda laughed. A brittle, forced sound. Don't lecture me on dignity. Maria's viewers passed 3,500. The chat was buzzing with energy. Emma just dropped the D word. Dignity. She's still calm. This is a power move. Why hasn't HQ stepped in yet? Linda stepped back, clearly frustrated. Tom's phone buzzed again. This time he checked it. The message was short. Hold position. Higher authority monitoring. Do not escalate. He looked at Emma, then at Linda. We're holding, he said. Linda threw up her hands. Unbelievable. Fine, but this delay is on her. Emma didn't respond. She didn't need to. Somewhere, higher up the chain, someone had just moved another piece on the board. And Maria's livestream viewers sensed it too. Something's coming. This is the calm before the storm. Stay tuned. Tom Reynolds was pacing quietly near the galley. The low hum of his earpiece almost drowned out by the quiet tension of the first-class cabin. On the other end of the line, a voice from operations spoke carefully, as though choosing each word deliberately. Supervisor Reynolds, we've completed verification of the ID provided by passenger Carter. It's authentic. The name, photo, and credentials all check out with Mayo Clinic's records. Tom froze mid-step. He'd expected complications, maybe inconsistencies, but not this. So, she's legitimate? Not just legitimate, the voice replied. Dr. Emma Carter is the youngest cardiology resident in Mayo Clinic history. And there was a pause. She's credited with designing the emergency in-flight medical response protocols we currently use. Tom's breath caught. You mean our protocols? The same system we train crews on every year? Yes, the voice said evenly. Including first-class medical response procedures. Her name is in the documentation. Tom turned, his eyes sweeping toward Emma in 2A. She was calmly turning a page in her textbook, her expression unchanged. Linda Hayes, still standing with her arms crossed, caught the shift in Tom's posture. What? She demanded. Tom hesitated, the words sticking in his throat. Her credentials, they're valid. Linda's eyebrows shot up, then immediately narrowed. Valid? You're telling me this teenager is a doctor? Her voice rose in disbelief. This is ridiculous. Maria Lopez's live stream caught the exchange perfectly. Her viewers shot past 3,800. Tom just admitted it's real. She designed the airline's protocols? Linda's still in denial. Tom took a step closer to Linda, lowering his voice. Not just a doctor, she's the one who created the emergency protocol we're trained to follow. She's in the system. Linda gave a sharp laugh. Oh, please. Do you know how easy it is to fake a digital footprint these days? ID forgery, fabricated credentials, even fake press releases. It's all smoke and mirrors. Tom frowned. The verification came directly from operations and medical oversight. That's not something you can fake from the outside. Linda scoffed. You're too trusting, Tom. I've been doing this for 15 years. I can smell a scam when I see one. Maria's viewers were relentless. Linda is digging herself in deeper. She just called corporate verification a scam. This is insane. In 1B, the man in the charcoal suit shifted slightly, his eyes fixed on Linda now. His phone vibrated quietly against his tray table. He glanced at the notification, then tapped a short reply. Maria's camera caught the motion and her chat exploded again. 1B is active again. He's watching Linda implode. This is going to turn. Tom stepped closer to Emma's seat, his voice low. "Dr. Carter, I've been informed your credentials are verified. Would you like to explain your connection to the airline protocols?" Emma closed her textbook, placing her pen neatly in the spine. She looked at Tom, her voice calm and even. "2 years ago, I consulted with United Skies on updating their in-flight medical response system. The previous model had serious delays in first-class emergency response. We redesigned the chain of communication and medical kit accessibility. It was implemented across the fleet." Her words were simple, factual, but the implication rippled through the cabin like a quiet explosion. Maria's viewers passed 4,000. She literally wrote the rules they're supposed to follow. "This is unbelievable. Linda is in serious trouble now." Linda stepped forward, her voice sharp. "That's a very convenient story. And where's the proof of this so-called contribution? A plaque? A press release conveniently hidden in some corner of the internet?" Emma reached into her portfolio, pulling out a slim folder. Inside was a laminated card. Official United Skies documentation. She handed it to Tom. Tom's eyes widened as he read the title. In-Flight Medical Emergency Response Protocol. Revision 7. Authored in consultation with Dr. Emma Carter. Linda snatched the card from his hand, scanning it quickly. "This proves nothing," she said, her voice rising. "Anyone could print this." Tom's patience was thinning. "Linda, this came from operations. It's standard issue documentation. The revision code matches what we use on every flight." Linda's jaw tightened, but her voice remained defiant. "I'm not saying she's not clever. I'm saying she's not first-class material. Credentials or not, she doesn't belong here." Maria's audience erupted. This is pure bias now. Linda's making it worse for herself. Emma's still calm. Amazing. Emma didn't respond to Linda's jab. Instead, she leaned back in her seat, her hands folded over her lap. Her calm was beginning to feel less like passivity and more like a deliberate choice, a quiet assertion of control. Tom stepped back toward the galley, pulling out his phone. His thumb hovered over the operations contact, debating his next move. In 1B, the man in the charcoal suit's phone buzzed again. He checked the screen, then leaned slightly into the aisle. His voice was quiet, but the words were clear enough for Maria's mic to catch. "They're still resisting. You'd better watch this feed yourself." Somewhere far above their pay grade, someone was indeed watching. The first-class cabin seemed to be holding its breath. Linda Hayes was still muttering about procedures and fraudulent upgrades, but her voice had lost some of its sharp certainty. Tom Reynolds stood by the galley, turning his phone over in his hands, debating whether to escalate the matter further. Then Emma Carter's phone lit up again. The caller ID was crystal clear this time. Robert Carter. Maria Lopez's live stream camera swung toward the screen, catching the name just as the phone began to ring. Her viewers, now well over 4,500, exploded. "It's him. It's the Robert Carter. She's been holding this card the whole time. This is about to go nuclear." Linda's eyes landed on the phone, her mouth opening in disbelief. "Robert Carter? Really?" she scoffed, but there was a tremor in her voice she couldn't hide. Emma answered calmly, her tone composed. "Uncle Robert." The speakerphone crackled, and a voice came through, deep, steady, with an unmistakable air of authority. "Emma, are you safe?" Every head in the cabin turned. Even the low hum of the air conditioning seemed to quiet under the sound of Robert Carter's voice. "I'm fine," Emma replied. "But we have a situation on Flight 447. Maria's audience went wild. She just called him Uncle. Uncle Robert equals Chairman Carter. "This is insane. Linda's career is over." There was a pause on the other end, and when Robert spoke again, his voice had shifted. Still calm, but edged with steel. "Put me on speaker." Emma tapped her phone, placing it on the armrest. Robert's voice filled the cabin. "This is Robert Carter, Chairman of United Skies Airlines," he said. "To whom am I speaking?" Linda's face went pale. She opened her mouth, but words failed her. Tom cleared his throat. Mr. Carter, this is Tom Reynolds, ground supervisor. We've had a misunderstanding regarding a passenger's documentation. A misunderstanding, Robert repeated slowly. My niece is seated in 2A. She holds a valid first-class ticket purchased through our corporate account. That ticket has been in her name since the booking opened. Would you like me to forward the receipt? The silence in the cabin was deafening. Maria's audience count shot over 5,000. He just said, my niece. She's literally family to the chairman. Linda is done. Linda finally found her voice. Sir, there was confusion about her credentials. I was only following protocol. Robert's voice sharpened. Protocol does not involve public humiliation of a passenger in first class. Protocol does not involve dismissing valid identification verified by operations. And protocol certainly does not involve harassing my family. Linda's face flushed. Sir, I didn't know she was… That's the point, Robert cut in. You didn't know who she was, and you treated her as though she didn't belong, which means you would have treated any passenger like this. Maria's audience went into overdrive. He's dismantling her argument live. This is perfect. Emma never used her power until now. Amazing. Linda faltered. Sir, Linda, Robert said, his tone cooling. Emma asked me not to intervene earlier. She wanted to resolve this as any passenger would, without using her name or my position. She wanted to see if the system would work as designed. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Even the couple in 3A, who'd been silently watching the drama, looked openly shocked. Maria's audience was incredulous. She didn't even want special treatment. She let it play out just to see how they'd react. This is next-level patience. Linda's jaw tightened. Sir, Robert's voice hardened again. You've proven the system needs reform. Loudly, publicly, and in front of over 5,000 live viewers, apparently. Linda's head snapped toward Maria. You're streaming this? Maria's expression was unapologetic. The world deserves to see how this plays out. Robert's tone shifted, quieter but still firm. Emma, you handled yourself exactly as I would have expected. You remained calm, respectful, and patient. Far more patient than most would be in your position. Emma inclined her head slightly toward the phone. Thank you, Uncle Robert. But this isn't about me. It's about the fact that what happened to me happens to people every day. People without a direct line to the chairman. Robert's pause spoke volumes. When he spoke again, his voice was measured but resolute. You're absolutely right, and we will address that. But first, I want to be very clear. You are staying in 2A. No one is to disturb you further. Maria's audience went wild again. This is the clapback of the century. Linda can't recover from this. She's still standing there, frozen. Linda swallowed hard. Sir, I understand. Robert's voice cooled further. Good, because this incident will be reviewed immediately, and corrective measures will be implemented. Tom, you'll make sure that happens. Tom nodded, though Robert couldn't see him. Understood, Mr. Carter. Robert's tone shifted once more, addressing the room at large. For everyone else on this flight, you've witnessed something I wish you hadn't had to see. But transparency is important. This is why reform is coming. Emma's expression remained composed, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes. A subtle relief that the truth was finally in the open. Maria's live stream surged to nearly 6,000 viewers. This is history in real time. Emma just proved her point. It's about the system, not her last name. Incredible restraint. Robert's voice softened slightly. Emma, I'll let you continue your flight. I'll be speaking with you after we land. We have work to do. Understood, Emma said simply. Robert's tone shifted back to command mode. Tom, keep me updated. Linda, we will discuss your conduct in detail. For now, remain professional and complete your duties as directed. This conversation is over. The line clicked dead. The silence that followed was almost physical. Linda stood rigid, her face pale. Tom looked down at his phone, as though it might give him the right words. Emma quietly opened her textbook again. Maria's audience was euphoric. That was the most satisfying takedown ever. She never even raised her voice. This is going viral. Immediately, in 1B, the man in the charcoal suit smiled faintly to himself and set his phone aside. His job here was done, for now. The aircraft was still on ground hold, but the tension in the cabin had shifted. The balance of power had flipped completely, and Emma Carter had never moved from her seat. The cabin was still frozen in the aftermath of Robert Carter's call. Every passenger in first class had just witnessed a moment that would be replayed endlessly across social media. The chairman's voice still seemed to echo faintly, a weight that hung over the plush, silent seats. Linda Hayes stood rigid, her arms pressed tightly to her sides, her professional poise now brittle and cracking. Tom Reynolds remained in the galley, eyes fixed on his phone as if the right sequence of words might undo the mess that had just unfolded. Emma Carter sat exactly where she had been all along, calm as stone, the hum of the aircraft almost blending with the quiet turning of a page in her medical textbook. The speakerphone crackled again. Robert's voice, crisp and commanding, filled the cabin once more. "Tom Reynolds, you are to document this incident immediately. Effective now, Linda Hayes is suspended from duty pending full review. Tom, you will also be removed from active rotation to attend immediate remedial training." The words landed like a gavel. Maria Lopez's live stream chat exploded. Suspended. "Tom too? This is incredible." Linda's breath caught audibly. "Sir, Linda," Robert's voice interrupted, calm but iron-edged. "We will discuss the details formally. But as of this moment, you are relieved of all in-flight duties. Another crew member will take over your responsibilities. You will exit the aircraft upon arrival and proceed to mandatory bias training." Maria's camera caught the flicker of something in Linda's expression. Not just fear, shock. Emma glanced up from her book. "Uncle Robert," she said evenly, her tone calm but carrying just enough weight to be heard over the open line. "Yes, Emma?" Emma's eyes shifted briefly toward Linda, then back to her phone. "I don't want her fired." The words silenced the entire cabin for the second time in less than 5 minutes. Maria's chat exploded in confusion. "What? Emma's defending Linda? This twist. I didn't see it coming." Linda's eyes widened. "You don't want me fired?" Emma's tone didn't soften, but there was clarity in her words. "I want her to understand. I want her to recognize why what happened today was wrong. Termination will end her career without changing her perspective. I'd rather she be trained, challenged, and then stand in front of future employees as an example of how bias can be unlearned." Robert's voice was thoughtful after a pause. "Emma, are you certain? There are plenty of people watching this live stream who would say otherwise." Emma's calm was unshaken. "I'm certain. We don't change a system by cutting people out and pretending the problem goes away. We change it by helping them see what they couldn't see before." Maria's audience went wild. "She's taking the high road. This is why she's the protagonist. Turning punishment into education? Genius." Linda was speechless. Her voice cracked slightly when she finally spoke. "Dr. Carter, I don't deserve that kind of consideration." Emma looked at her directly for the first time since the confrontation began. "No, but you deserve the chance to do better. We all do." For a moment, the noise of the aircraft faded into a strange, heavy quiet. Tom looked between the two women, his expression shifting from guilt to something else. Determination. Robert's voice broke the silence. "Very well. Linda Hayes will not be terminated at this time. Instead, she will complete the full bias retraining program under direct evaluation. Upon successful completion, she will return to duty, but not before standing before her peers to present what she has learned." Linda's breath hitched. "Sir, Her words faltered, the fight drained from her voice. Robert continued. "Tom Reynolds, you will join the same program. Your position as a supervisor means you have greater responsibility. Both of you will become case studies for the next cohort of trainees." Maria's chat was in full meltdown. "Tom too?" Emma just saved Linda's job but made her an example. This is brilliant. Tom straightened slightly. "Understood, Mr. Carter," he said, his voice more serious than it had been all day. Robert's voice softened again, directed toward Emma. "Satisfied?" Emma nodded once. "Yes, this is the outcome I wanted." Maria's viewers were captivated. She turned a punishment into systemic change. This is how reform starts. Emma Carter just proved she's playing the long game. Linda turned toward Emma, her voice quiet. "Dr. Carter, I know it doesn't mean much right now, but thank you." Emma didn't reply immediately. Instead, she picked up her textbook and returned to the chapter she had been reading before all of this began. "Learn from this," she said softly. Maria's camera caught the moment perfectly. Her chat surged past 6,500 viewers, every one of them watching the once dominant Linda Hayes stand silently, no longer in command, no longer in denial. The balance in the cabin had shifted completely. The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, Flight 447 will resume departure clearance shortly. Thank you for your patience." But everyone in first class knew patience was no longer the story. Something much bigger had just begun. The aircraft had finally begun its slow pushback from the gate, but the cabin was still electric. The tension that had started with shouted accusations had shifted into something sharper, more focused. A sense that the moment wasn't just ending. It was expanding, rippling outward, far beyond the walls of Flight 447. Maria Lopez's live stream was steady at over 6,500 viewers, with clips already trending on multiple social platforms. Her followers weren't just commenting anymore. They were tagging journalists, airline executives, and legal experts. Hashtags were forming in real time. In the galley, Tom Reynolds was checking his phone when a new notification appeared. Internal broadcast, United Skies HQ. He opened it, and his breath caught. The subject line read, "Chairman Carter, Emergency Corporate Statement." He glanced at Emma, still calmly seated in 2A, her medical textbook balanced on her lap. The seatback monitor in the first-class cabin lit up with the United Skies corporate logo. A moment later, Robert Carter's face appeared. His voice carried the calm authority of someone who understood exactly how many people were watching. "To all United Skies employees, passengers, and partners," he began. "What happened on Flight 447 today has made one thing clear. Our current systems for addressing bias, discrimination, and dignity in customer experience are not sufficient. And as of this moment, we are changing that." Maria angled her phone to capture the screen. Her viewers surged to over 7,200. "He's making a public statement live. This is history." Emma's sitting right there watching this. Robert continued. "Effective immediately, United Skies Airlines will implement a new policy, the Dignity in Air Travel Initiative. This program will establish clear, enforceable standards for passenger treatment, eliminate tolerance for discriminatory behavior, and create new channels for accountability." Gasps and murmurs spread through the cabin. Linda Hayes, still seated in the jump seat, looked down at her hands, her jaw tight. Robert's tone was firm but calm. "This initiative will have 3 pillars. First, mandatory bias and cultural competency training for all customer-facing employees. Second, creation of a real-time reporting system to escalate passenger complaints directly to senior management. And third," he paused, letting the moment breathe. Maria's viewers leaned in digitally. "What's the third? This is going to be big." Robert's voice deepened slightly. "Third, a technological platform, an app that allows passengers to submit reports, upload supporting evidence, and track resolution timelines. This app will bypass traditional management layers and alert a designated oversight team immediately." And Tom looked stunned. "That's unprecedented." Maria's chat exploded. "A direct-to-executive hotline? This will change everything. No more hiding complaints." Robert continued. "This oversight team will be chaired by a representative who understands both aviation and the customer experience. I can think of no one more qualified than Dr. Emma Carter, who has agreed to serve as the lead consultant on the Dignity in Air Travel initiative. The cabin erupted into whispers. Maria swung her camera back to Emma, whose expression remained composed, but whose posture straightened slightly at the announcement. Her chat went wild. She's leading the program? Emma just went from passenger to policymaker. This is the ultimate twist. Robert's voice warmed slightly. Emma's role will be to ensure that this policy is not just words on paper, but a living system that works in real time for passengers and employees alike. She will help design the reporting process, review data trends, and recommend ongoing improvements. Linda's face flushed as the reality of what that meant sank in. The woman she dismissed would now be directly shaping the system that could decide her future. Robert's tone returned to command mode. Effective immediately, all incidents will be reviewed by this oversight team. Employees will be held accountable, but the goal will always be education and systemic improvement. The broadcast ended, the screen fading back to the airline logo. The cabin sat in stunned silence for a moment. Then a wave of low conversation began. Passengers talking about the statement, the policy, the app. Tom stepped closer to Emma. "You knew about this?" Emma closed her textbook slowly. "I knew something like it was coming. I didn't know I'd be chairing it." Maria's live stream viewers shot past 8,000. She's now officially in charge of reform. Emma just became the face of change. This is the moment the story goes national. Somewhere, in the network of social media platforms, clips of the corporate statement were already being uploaded. News outlets were picking them up. The hashtag Dignity in Air Travel began trending, alongside hashtag Flight 44 and hashtag Emma Carter. Linda sat in silence, the fight gone from her posture. Her career wasn't over, but the reality of public scrutiny was setting in. She would return, eventually, but her path back would be through Emma's program. Emma adjusted her seatbelt as the aircraft taxied. She glanced briefly at Maria's camera and spoke, her tone calm but resolute. "Policies don't fix themselves. People make them work, or fail. We're going to make this one work." Maria's chat exploded with praise. She's not doing this for revenge. She's doing it for change. Emma Carter just rewrote airline history. This is the kind of leadership we need everywhere. As Flight 447 prepared for takeoff, the cabin felt different. The hostility of earlier had given way to something else. Anticipation, pride, and the quiet recognition that they had all witnessed the first step of a much bigger change. By the time Flight 447 was cruising at altitude, the story had already burst past the airline cabin and into the global spotlight. Maria Lopez's live stream had been clipped and reposted by major news outlets, her narration becoming the unofficial documentary of the incident. In the forward galley, Tom Reynolds was quietly typing out his official incident report when a new notification pinged his phone. CEO Patricia Stone, live corporate address at 2:30 p.m. EST. Emma Carter, seated in 2A, looked up briefly as the seatback monitors lit up again. The familiar corporate logo appeared, followed by Patricia Stone's composed face. Her voice was measured but firm. "Good afternoon. By now, many of you have seen footage from Flight 447. As CEO of United Skies Airlines, I want to make our position clear. There is no place for discrimination in our airline, toward passengers, employees, or anyone who interacts with our brand. And today, we're taking steps to ensure that message is not just words, but policy." Maria's live stream chat exploded. The CEO is speaking live. 2 top executives in one day. This is huge. Emma is literally watching this from the flight. Patricia continued, her expression serious. "Chairman Carter has already announced the Dignity in Air Travel initiative. I am here to add that this initiative will be expanded across our entire network and extended to our partner airlines. Every United Skies employee, from ticketing to the cockpit, will receive comprehensive bias training, and the Dignity app will launch to passengers in the next 60 days. There was a pause before her expression shifted slightly, becoming more strategic. "I am also aware that some of our shareholders have expressed concern about the cost of this initiative. Let me address that directly. Maria's chat went into overdrive. Here we go. The money fight. Shareholders already pushing back. This is where it gets tricky. Patricia leaned slightly forward. This is an investment, but we have data to show it is a profitable one. And for that, I'd like to invite someone who can speak to this with far more expertise than I can. The camera cut, not to another executive in a suit, but to Emma Carter, seated calmly in 2A. Maria's camera caught Emma's subtle blink of surprise. Patricia's voice continued. Dr. Carter, as lead consultant on the Dignity Initiative, would you care to explain the numbers to our investors? Emma straightened slightly. She didn't glance at Maria's lens, but her voice carried with the same quiet authority she'd shown all day. The average annual legal settlement for discrimination-related incidents across major U.S. airlines exceeds $50 million. That's just settlements, not including reputational damage or lost customer loyalty. By implementing the Dignity Initiative, we project a 60% reduction in incidents, saving approximately $30 million annually in settlements alone. That doesn't include increased revenue from improved passenger retention. Maria's viewers surged past 8,500. She just shut the money argument down. She's using their language. Numbers. Brilliant. Emma continued, her tone still calm but unyielding. The initial cost of training and app deployment is $15 million over the first year. After that, maintenance costs are projected at $3 million annually. The return on investment is clear. Within 18 months, the program pays for itself. Patricia nodded approvingly from her broadcast window. Thank you, Dr. Carter. I think that addresses the cost concerns. But Maria's chat wasn't done buzzing. She's schooling the shareholders on ROI mid-flight. Emma just made the business case impossible to ignore. This is why she's in charge of the initiative. Patricia's tone softened slightly. To our investors, change is often expensive at the outset, but refusing to change is far more costly in the long term. We are not simply avoiding lawsuits. We are improving our brand, protecting our employees, and ensuring our passengers feel safe choosing United Skies over any competitor. That is value. There was a deliberate pause before she finished. I look forward to reporting improved customer satisfaction scores and improved profitability at our next quarterly meeting. Thank you. The broadcast ended, the screens fading back to the airline's logo once more. In the cabin, a quiet ripple of reaction passed through the passengers. Several first-class travelers looked toward Emma, some with expressions of respect, others with visible curiosity. Tom stepped over quietly. That was impressive, he said softly. Emma returned to her textbook. Data isn't emotional. People can argue feelings all day. They can't argue math. Maria's chat exploded again. That line. They can't argue math. Legendary. Emma Carter just dismantled the opposition with numbers. The program is bulletproof now. Somewhere across the country, shareholders were digesting the numbers. In the broader aviation industry, competitors were already taking notes. On Flight 447, the mood shifted. The earlier tension had eased, replaced with something else. The awareness that the confrontation in 2A had triggered a chain reaction that might permanently alter the airline's future. By the time Flight 447 descended toward Los Angeles, the world outside the aircraft had already begun shifting. The Dignity in Air Travel Initiative was no longer a proposal. It had become a mandate. In United Skies corporate headquarters, the board had voted unanimously to adopt the policy across the entire network. Patricia Stone and Robert Carter had secured the necessary backing by demonstrating both the ethical necessity and the financial viability, thanks in no small part to Emma Carter's precise presentation of the numbers. Maria Lopez's live stream had crossed 9,000 concurrent viewers, with clips circulating across every major platform. Industry insiders were sharing the statement alongside headlines. United Skies launches landmark anti-bias program. Chairman's niece orchestrates historic reform, and airline industry faces new standard of service. Emma remained in 2A, as calm as she had been since the very first confrontation. But outside the cabin, her name was becoming synonymous with systemic change. The captain's voice came over the intercom as the aircraft taxied to the gate. "Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of United Skies, welcome to Los Angeles. Local time is 5:42 p.m. and the weather is clear. We thank you for your patience during today's unusual circumstances." Passengers in first class exchanged glances that spoke volumes. Unusual circumstances hardly covered it. At headquarters, the program's rollout was already being coordinated. Mandatory bias training sessions were scheduled for every employee. The Dignity app development was being fast-tracked with a promised public release within 60 days. But the change didn't stop at United Skies. Within a week of the incident, 2 partner airlines, SkyWest Regional and Transcontinental, announced they would adopt the Dignity in Air Travel initiative in full. Delta, American, and Alaska Airlines began exploratory talks about implementing their own versions of the policy. The FAA signaled interest in reviewing the program for potential national guidelines. Maria's live stream had turned into a daily update feed, with each post garnering tens of thousands of views. Her audience had grown far beyond her travel blogger base. She was now regarded as one of the primary citizen journalists documenting a turning point in aviation service standards. Inside United Skies, the most symbolic change of all was taking shape. Linda Hayes, who had once stood at the center of the storm, began her mandated bias retraining program 2 weeks after Flight 447 landed. She attended every session, completed every module, and participated in live scenario workshops. 3 months later, Linda stood at the front of a training auditorium, her Navy uniform pressed crisp, her voice steady as she addressed a group of new hires. "My name is Linda Hayes," she began. 15 years of experience as a flight attendant taught me a lot about customer service, but it also taught me how easy it is to make assumptions that hurt people. On Flight 447, I made those mistakes publicly. Today, I'm here to help you learn from them." Maria was there too, recording quietly from the back of the room. Her audience tuned in, fascinated to see the transformation. Emma Carter, meanwhile, had taken on her role as lead consultant for the Dignity Initiative. She reviewed data from the app's beta launch, refining response timelines, and coordinating with legal and HR teams to ensure every report was addressed within 24 hours. Reports of discriminatory incidents dropped by 40% in the first 2 months, then by 65% in the following quarter. Customer satisfaction scores rose significantly, and United Skies' public image rebounded faster than anyone at corporate had dared to hope. Emma refused to take the spotlight for herself. At a press conference, she stood beside Patricia Stone and Robert Carter, insisting that the credit belonged to everyone willing to change. "The Dignity Initiative isn't about one person," she told reporters. "It's about building a system where everyone feels safe and respected, passengers and crew alike. That requires constant work, not just a single policy announcement." In the months following, major airlines across the United States announced similar programs. Industry publications dubbed it the Flight 447 effect. The FAA formally incorporated bias training as part of mandatory continuing education for all airline personnel. Emma's name was cited in multiple industry white papers, but she remained focused on the work, splitting her time between her medical residency at Mayo Clinic and her consulting duties at United Skies. Linda became one of the most requested trainers in the bias program, not because her past was erased, but because she faced it openly. Her story became a powerful teaching tool for new employees, showing that mistakes could lead to meaningful change if confronted honestly. Maria Lopez's platform continued to grow, now blending travel content with advocacy. She often reminded her audience, "The reason this worked is because we saw it. Transparency forces action. Keep watching, keep recording." The Dignity app rolled out across the United Skies network, complete with an anonymous submission feature, direct-to-executive alerts, and public tracking of resolution metrics. Within 6 months, the program had processed over 4,000 reports, most resolved within days. United Sky's quarterly report showed not only a decrease in legal costs, but also an increase in bookings. Customers noticed the change, and they were rewarding the airline with loyalty. In the boardroom, Robert Carter summarized it best. This wasn't charity. This was good business. But more importantly, it was the right thing to do. 6 months had passed since Flight 447 touched down in Los Angeles. In that time, the Dignity in Air Travel initiative had gone from a groundbreaking announcement to a fully integrated system across the United Skies network, and far beyond. The numbers told the story best. Discrimination-related passenger complaints had dropped by 72% across the airline. Customer satisfaction scores had risen to their highest in a decade. Employee retention had improved, especially among flight attendants and customer-facing staff. In industry journals, analysts referred to the shift as the Flight 447 legacy. Aviation blogs described it as a case study in cultural transformation. Competitor airlines had adopted similar programs, and the FAA was in the final stages of drafting industry-wide guidelines based on the Dignity Initiative's framework. Emma Carter had stepped away from the daily operations of the program after its first 6 months. Her consulting role had transitioned to a quarterly advisory position, freeing her to focus again on her cardiology residency at Mayo Clinic. Her days were now filled with early rounds, surgical observations, and patient care. But no matter how demanding her medical schedule became, the echoes of Flight 447 followed her. On social media, passengers still tagged Nashta US 447 in posts about positive experiences on United Skies flights. Crew members shared stories of incidents handled respectfully, and the Dignity app continued to process reports. Fewer now, but each addressed with the seriousness it deserved. Linda Hayes had completed her bias training and returned to duty, now serving as a senior trainer for new hires. Her transformation had become one of the program's most powerful teaching tools. One morning in a United Skies training center in Dallas, Linda addressed a fresh group of flight attendants. "I stood where you are now," she said, her voice steady. "I thought experience meant I couldn't make certain mistakes. Flight 447 taught me otherwise. It also taught me that change is possible. You're part of that change now." In the back of the room, Maria Lopez filmed a short clip for her audience, captioning it, "From confrontation to education, Linda's journey comes full circle." But the true proof of change came on an ordinary Thursday afternoon aboard Flight 823 from Chicago to Miami. Midway through boarding, a gate agent flagged a possible seating issue in first class. A young man, dressed simply, had taken his assigned seat, but another passenger questioned whether his ticket was legitimate. The tone of the conversation began to sharpen. The report reached the lead flight attendant, Sophie Bennett, one of Linda's most dedicated trainees. Sophie approached with calm authority, her voice measured. "Sir, may I see your ticket?" The young man handed it over. Sophie scanned it, verified the details, and smiled. "Your seat is confirmed. Please let me know if you need anything during the flight." She then turned to the other passenger. "All tickets are verified before boarding. I appreciate your patience. We'll depart on time." The situation de-escalated smoothly, without raised voices or unnecessary confrontation. In Dallas, Linda received the incident report as part of her trainer's oversight duties. She smiled as she read it. Sophie had handled it perfectly, following both the policy and the spirit of the Dignity Initiative. She forwarded the report to Emma with a short message. "You'll like this one. The circle is complete." That evening, after her hospital shift, Emma opened the message. She read the incident summary, a small smile curving her lips. The satisfaction wasn't pride in her own role. It was the quiet knowledge that the system was working, that people she'd never met were making choices that kept the skies just a little more dignified for everyone. Maria posted a short update that same night. Another day, another flight, another quiet victory for dignity in air travel. #US 447 lives on. In the aviation industry, the legacy of Flight 447 had settled into something steady and enduring. The program wasn't perfect, no system ever was, but it had changed the standard. And every successful resolution, every calm conversation where there might once have been confrontation, was part of that legacy. Emma Carter continued her residency, but her phone still pinged occasionally with updates from United Skies. She didn't need to intervene often anymore. The team she'd helped build was capable, committed, and carrying the work forward. 6 months after Flight 447, the world had moved on to other stories. But for those who had been there, and for the thousands impacted by the program, it remained a quiet milestone. A reminder that sometimes the most lasting change begins not with shouting, but with calm persistence and the courage to hold your ground.